It was during a family gathering at my sister's house. A night filled with chatter, laughter, and the comforting hum of people talking over one another. I'd always been known as the one with the quick wit, the playful one who never missed a chance to throw in a joke, even if it sometimes went a little too far. That evening, as everyone sat around the dinner table, I slipped into that same role without much thought. With a teasing smile, I quipped about trading in my husband if anyone was interested. To me, it was harmless, a throwaway line meant to stir some laughs. The ripple that followed, however, was nothing I could have expected. The table erupted with light laughter, everyone waiting for my husband's usual reaction, either his shy grin or a sarcastic comment to balance mine. Instead, he leaned back slightly in his chair, his eyes moving slowly across the room before settling back on me. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm but carried a sharp edge, as though he had been holding on to these words for longer than I could guess. "Maybe you should," he said evenly, "because then maybe someone might actually value me more than you do." The air in the room changed instantly. The laughter evaporated, forks hovered midair, and my own smile cracked and fell away. My husband had never been one to raise his voice or show anger, but in that single moment, his words landed harder than if he had shouted. Around us, the silence deepened. My sister lowered her gaze. Cousins shifted uncomfortably in their chairs, and even my father cleared his throat as though to break the heavy quiet. But nothing could cover the weight of what had just been spoken. I wanted to brush it off, to laugh again as though it were just another joke, but his eyes told me otherwise. They weren't filled with fury. They were full of something far worse. Disappointment. In that instant, I understood something I had never stopped to consider. All the little remarks I'd made over the years, all the careless jokes at his expense had been stacking up, and now they had finally come crashing down on me. His reply was not a comeback. It was a mirror, one that showed me just how poorly I had treated him without even realizing it. The night stumbled forward after that, but the light-hearted mood was gone. Conversations were subdued, laughter forced. Later, as we drove home, I tried to explain myself to pass it off as nothing serious. I even tried to joke about it again, but his silence swallowed my words whole. That silence weighed heavier than anything he could have said. That night, as I lay awake, his calm but cutting statement replayed in my head until it echoed louder than any argument ever could. It dawned on me that what he had given me wasn't anger. It was quiet revenge, and it struck deeper than any fight. The following days made the impact even clearer. Whispers spread through the family, though no one said anything to my face. I noticed how relatives who had once laughed easily at my bold humor now approached me with restraint. When they spoke to him, however, their tones softened with respect. It was as if his single reply had exposed a truth they had always suspected but never voiced. I, the one who had made light of him, was now the one silently judged. My husband, the man I had teased so casually, had risen above me in the eyes of everyone else. At home, I tried to undo the damage. I cooked his favorite meals, apologized countless times, and searched for ways to bring us back to where we were. He didn't lash out or punish me with anger, but his distance was unmistakable. He was kind, polite even, but the warmth that had always been there was gone. His quietness became its own language, one that told me that respect, once fractured, wasn't easily restored. My punishment wasn't rage or shouting. It was the heavy stillness of a man who had simply stopped trying to prove his worth to someone who had overlooked it. Weeks passed, and my regret grew heavier with each day. I began to notice how others treated him differently now. Friends described him as strong. Family admired his composure, and even his coworkers seemed to hold him in higher regard. Meanwhile, I had become the subject of whispers. The wife who had mocked her husband until his calm defiance silenced her. The balance between us had shifted, and it was I who stood diminished in the eyes of those around us. One quiet evening, unable to hold the silence any longer, I asked him if he still loved me. He didn't rush to answer. He simply looked at me with tired eyes that held no anger, just a weary honesty. "Love isn't the question," he finally said. "Respect is, and once respect is gone, love doesn't stand very long either." His words hit me harder than any confrontation ever could. In that moment, I understood. What I had thought was love wasn't enough to sustain us without the foundation of respect. From that day on, I began to change, not because I was afraid of losing him, but because I finally grasped the weight of my own words and the damage they had caused. I stopped making jokes at his expense. I started seeing him for who he truly was, a man deserving of dignity, honor, and care. His one calm sentence had done more than silence me. It had reshaped the way I spoke, the way I treated him, the way I loved. Even years later, whenever we gather with family, the memory of that night lingers. No one dares to make that kind of joke anymore. People regard him with a respect that wasn't there before. And when they look at me, there's always a subtle reminder of what I nearly lost. That night at my sister's house remains etched in my mind, not as a moment of humor gone wrong, but as the turning point when his quiet revenge forced me to face the truth. His strength was never in loudness or fury. It was in his calm dignity, in the silence that made me see myself clearly for the first time. That single, calmly spoken sentence became the sharpest weapon I'd ever faced. It left me with a truth I could never deny again. Sometimes the strongest form of revenge isn't rage,